What was your breaking point where you just snapped and went off on a rude customer? This is my manager's story, but I'm gonna tell it because I'm in it. Worked for a few years at a cafe in Brooklyn, my first ever job in high school and into college. All in all, I was there for about 3 years, and with this time, I became an expert barista and waitress. I knew the regulars and their orders well enough to have them ready by the time they walked in the door. I trained all the new employees. I was the manager's, owner's right hand in all things cafe related. Now, this particular event happened on a Saturday night. Because we were well known in the area and always pretty busy, we often stayed open until 1 or 2 on Friday and Saturday nights. A group of 7 came in at about midnight, and I always jump at the chance to serve big tables because it can potentially mean big tips. But let me tell you, this was the worst freaking group I had ever served. They changed tables twice for literally no reason. The gentleman demanded we give him his drink in one of these specialty cups on the wall, something I've never done for anyone because those cups are on display to be purchased, so on and so forth. When taking their orders, the special cup gentleman's wife insisted she didn't want anything. I said, "Are you sure? Can I get you a water?" But no, she doesn't want anything. I take the rest of the orders, make the drinks, then come back 7 to 8 minutes later and serve them. As soon as I finish setting the drinks down and walk back behind the counter, Mr. Special Cup follows me there, even though customers aren't allowed there, and throws a freaking tantrum because I didn't bring his wife a drink, full-blown screaming at me in this tiny cafe about how incompetent I am. This is the worst service he's ever received in his life. He's been coming here for years, but he'll never come back here again, and I should know that I am personally to blame. My manager, upon hearing this guy berating me, comes over to see what's up. SC just continues to rip into me. My manager should be ashamed to have ever hired me. I should be fired immediately. He's going to tell all of his friends never to step foot in this establishment ever again, blah, blah, blah. But then my manager stands up for me like I've never been stood up for before. "Sir, X has been working here for years, and I've never once received a single complaint about her. In all honesty, she's the most experienced and probably the best server in this cafe. If you're having a problem with her, it's because you are the issue. Now, I've never seen you here once before, so I can say with certainty that you won't be missed should you choose never to come back. I'm not going to ask you to pay for your drinks, although I should consider how disrespectful you've been to my staff, but I am going to ask you to leave immediately." They left, and I immediately walked into the bathroom and cried, partially because I was just so shook up and angered by what the customer had said to and about me, but mostly because I was so grateful to have a manager willing to stick his neck out like that for me. Cheers to you, boss man. Your story too. Not me, but a former assistant manager of mine was definitely not shy about calling out rude customers and shoplifters. The top 3 that I witnessed myself are, first, a customer who was also one of those extreme couponers that was sort of a regular at our store was always difficult and argumentative, usually because she was always trying to get away with using multiple coupons that did not match anything she was buying. She also tried to get away with using expired coupons. So whenever a cashier would tell her she couldn't use a coupon, she would start getting verbally cruel. One day, I had the unfortunate luck of her at my register, and as expected, the same crap show began. I called for a manager, and once the assistant manager saw who it was, she flipped out on the customer. She had it with the lady. She told the customer to leave the store that instant. The lady, of course, fights back, verbally. My assistant manager was getting more and more pissed off. What really set her off is when the lady screamed at her to go F herself and that she was a fat, ugly witch. My assistant manager immediately fires back by saying, "No, you go F yourself, witch. Every damn time you come here, you always start your crap. I'm sick of it. We're all sick of it. Get the heck out now or I'll call the police." The lady thought she was bluffing for some stupid reason and encouraged her to do just that, and she did, and the lady left. Second, a group of teens that are in the store are messing around with some toys in the toy aisle. My assistant manager was keeping an eye on them the whole time, making sure they weren't trying to steal anything. They weren't. Soon they got bored and started walking to the front of the store to leave. However, one particular teen in the group made a mess of a few toys by not putting them back in the correct spots. So she approaches him, does that "come here" thing with her finger and said, "You, follow me." She takes him to the back to the toy aisle and tells him to straighten up the mess he made. All the while, she's giving him a lecture about respect and how he was being very disrespectful by making a mess. and then attempting to leave without cleaning it up. Meanwhile, his friends are all laughing at him. Third, there was a man walking around the store eating a McDonald's hamburger with the wrapper still on, but opened and rolled down some so he wouldn't get his hands all greasy and stuff. When he was done with the hamburger, my assistant manager happened to spot the wrapper bunched up and tossed onto a random shelf. She left it there and went to speak to the customer. She asked if he enjoyed his burger. He said, yes, I did. Then she asked what he did with the wrapper. He said he had put it in his pants pocket. She asked that he show her the wrapper. Of course, he couldn't produce it. So, like with the teen, she tells him to follow her. He does, and she points to the wrapper he claimed was in his pocket. She tells him, quite sternly, to throw it away in a garbage can where it belongs. She keeps going, saying stuff like, "Is that what you do at home? Do you live in a pigsty? Do you not know what a trash can is and what its purpose is for? Why do you think it's okay to toss your trash wherever you want?" All right, so that assistant manager has a new fan, and if she had a YouTube channel, I would totally subscribe right away. I can totally imagine her too, lecturing a middle-aged entitled jerk about littering. And let's all do ourselves and everyone else a favor. Clean as you go. All right, let's go ahead and get on to the next story. This is story 3. Well, I wasn't the one working, but one time went into a corner bakery and I was waiting in line trying to decide what to eat. As I was about to go up to order, I live in the South, by the way, your typically former Southern debutante trophy wife who is no longer happy in life and had gained a bunch of weight storms up to the counter red with anger. She starts yelling at the ladies at the counter, one older sweet black lady and I think a 16-year-old who was trying to hold the job. She freaking loses it, saying how she ordered extra chicken with her salad because she's on a special diet and she needs the extra protein. The lady at the register politely goes, "Oh, no problem, ma'am. We'll get you more chicken right away." With the sweetest smile ever. Lady still wasn't having it. Lady freaking snaps again and goes, "Well, you should have gotten it right the first time. You two are so pathetic. You both work here and can't even get this right." Then the 16-year-old slowly begins to break down crying, and the older lady looks like she's about to follow suit. She continues to go on to say how they won't amount to anything in life and are basically useless. At this point, I'm fuming because I hate seeing people mistreated, especially when they were so kind and eager to fix the mistake. After about 30 more seconds of me trying to stay calm, she says, "You two deserve to be fired. I can't believe they would hire such people who were incompetent. I want to speak to a manager. I'm on a strict special diet and you've ruined it. My diet requires extra protein. If you can't accommodate me on that, then you deserve to be let go." She goes on for a bit more, mentioning her diet every other 2 seconds. And I finally freaking snap with, "Are you on a witch diet too? Because that doesn't seem to be working either." Went on to say if she loses the stick up her bum, maybe she'd lose a few pounds, and while she was at it, possibly gain some class. Her jaw freaking dropped and she let out the most pretentious scoff I have ever heard and said how she's never been so disrespected in her life. Storms off saying how she deserves to be treated with dignity and attempts to slam the door. Meanwhile, the two at the register are trying so hard not to laugh at this point. They thanked me and offered to give me a free drink, which was pretty sweet. I refused, though, and gave them an extra big tip. Also, I spoke to the manager to make sure if the lady writes a review online, the two girls don't get fired. Story 4. I used to work at an auto body shop doing detailing on cars. One day, a lady picked her car up at the very end of the day after every other person had left, so it was just me and the receptionist. Sadly, her car had died, so I went to get the booster, and she was pissed about this because he recommended her a new battery because the car kept dying. I was fairly new and she had an Audi or something, so of course the battery is tucked away with that obvious post to jump off. So I was taking my time somewhat to make sure I did it correctly and didn't fry the thousands of electronic equipment if I messed it up. Now this pissed her off even more and she started going off on me. I took it for a second or two and she said, "Do you even freaking work here?" Which just made my blood boil. So I unhooked the terminals from the booster and left that witch sitting in the parking lot with her dead car. It felt so good to drive away while she was sitting there just watching me. I guess she called a friend or something because we never heard from her again. My boss never gave me crap for it, just asked me not to do that again. The shop was in a wealthy area, so we dealt with so many arrogant a-holes. I'm so glad I don't deal with customers anymore. I once saw an auto parts store that had "arrogant jerks not allowed" sign on their advertising. Anyway, since you're already here, please also don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to my channel. It means a lot to me. Thank you. Story 5. I was asked to cut the locks off any lockers that were not recorded as paid for. I was the one asked to do it because I opened the gym and any lockers used and not paid for were clearly in violation of the way of things. I didn't like the idea of it, but I agreed. I took too long to get to all of them, so a client came in just as I was cutting the lock off her locker. She flipped out on me, called me prejudiced, went to my manager, told him I'm prejudiced, and insisted on talking to the VP because she was sure she could and should get me fired. No freaking way. I have black cousins that had to grow up in a Mennonite family. I have a best friend who was treated as a dog because she is native and was fostered by a horrible white family. There is real discrimination out there and it's terrible. She didn't just insult me, she insulted everyone who has ever truly been a victim of oppression. Now, I'm good at customer service. I put up with everything with a smile and a willingness to laugh at myself. I cater to the needs of my customers and clients, and it's important to me that I make their experience as positive as possible. But yeah, this situation threw that all out the window. I told her she's a freaking witch and walked away, right in front of my manager. My manager gave me paid leave, and that was that. Well, once I got back, I also went through every customer record and matched it against all the other locker records, making sure it was properly up to date. And I also told my manager that I would not be cutting locks off anymore, and he agreed. Story 6. I used to be a shift supervisor at a pet store. I once had one of the girls come up to the front, crying. Immediately, my big sister instincts kicked in, and I asked her what's wrong. Turns out there's some jerk in the back in the dog food section that she was trying to help, and he was a total jerk to her, arguing with her about something that she was entirely correct about. So I headed back there. Jerkhead is back there throwing around bags of dog food. So I ask if he needs help, and he goes off on me about the girl that was just back there and how useless she was. So I listen to him rant and then correct him and tell him he was out of line. He gives me the favorite, haven't you heard the phrase, the customer is always right line? So I give him a flat look and respond with, yeah, and in this case, he's also a horse's bum. He loses it and yells, saying he wants to speak to the manager. I give a shrug and say, I am the manager. If you want, you can fill out a customer complaint card on your way out, and I will make sure I get it. But you need to leave now. I have managed at so many different retail stores, I am not even fazed by people anymore. I'm so glad to be out of the industry, though. The customer is always right. Huh. Anyway, that line is so misunderstood. It's not about pandering to every dumb A customer that wants to argue. It really is about supply and demand. If customers want product A, you should sell product A, even if you think product B is better. Story 7. I had a woman come into my red-themed department store asking about cameras. We aren't trained in every individual camera, so we usually just refer to the item cards on display near the device that lists the basic specs and the features. She wanted to know why one, which seemingly had better specs, was priced lower than the other. Best we could give her was, IDK, that's just the way it is. The entire time, she's berating my teammate who I had been called to assist and starts ripping into me, telling me she should have just gone to PC Richardson's instead of my store. After finally deciding on one, I ring her out where she continues to go on about the service and knowledge level. I asked if she wanted a replacement plan, which is standard practice on all electronics purchases. She was like, are you kidding me? I've never had a worse experience and there's no way I'm giving you any more money. I smiled and told her, well, next time, ma'am, there's always PC Richardson's. She was pissed. What did you just say to me? I repeated myself. Well, I should just go return this right now. Sure thing. Guest services at the front can definitely help you with that. Just make sure you have your receipt handy. Story 8. I work at a concert venue where I normally check bags and do security until a warp tour comes around. The food vendors were understaffed, so I was moved to a stand where we never had enough food, and I was the only one doing food prep, which I hadn't learned how to properly do. About 2 hours into cutting deals with people who ordered something I ran out of, saying, oh, chicken sandwich? Sorry, I just ran out. I feel really bad, but I have burgers. Can that work? I'll throw in some fries. Someone starts giving me crap. My line is backed up by 15 customers as it had been for an hour now, and this person somehow thinks that I can do anything about my current situation besides leave. I didn't even need to say anything. I looked the witch in the eyes, shut my own for a few seconds, took a deep breath, and exhausted hunched over the bar. When I looked up at my line of now 20 people, I make eye contact with the guy behind her in line. He turns the girl around and says, "We're here to see a concert, get buzzed, and have fun while this kid is stuck slaving away making food for people all day. How about you leave the frickin' kid alone? I'll refund you right now. What did you get?" For every one horrible person I deal with, there's at least five who keep a smile and make me happy to work there. Then there's that guy who brings a tear to my eye by looking out for me. And yes, that guy is friggin' amazing. Story 9. One of my coworkers was feeling under the weather about midway through her shift, so I was asked to move my till over to the register she was on so that she could go home. No biggie. I grab my till, walk over, and quietly tell coworker, "Hey, I'm here to relieve you so you can go home. Hope you feel better." She finishes up her transaction, pulls her till out, starts gathering her stuff up. Next customer in line starts complaining about how long she's going to have to wait. I put my till into the register. "It'll be just a moment, ma'am." Sign on. "Just give me a minute and I'll be with you," and start scanning her stuff. Customer complains about coworker not ringing her up. "She should have rung me up. I've been waiting for 10 minutes. A lie, since it had been slow with multiple registers open, and a coworker had taken maybe 2 minutes with her previous customer. Me, still scanning. "I'm very sorry about that, ma'am, but coworker was not feeling well and I was asked to relieve her so she could go home." Customer was not satisfied. "Well, why didn't she just stay home if she was sick?" I don't even look up at that point because I'm just seething. Still scanning her stuff, I respond, "Maybe she was feeling well at the start of her shift and only started feeling bad after she got here. Or maybe she tried to come in and work through feeling sick because maybe, just maybe, she relies on the money she makes here to have a roof over her head and food in her stomach and can't afford to take a sick day." I finished ringing her up. "Your total is XX amount," and not another word out of her. She grabbed her stuff and got out. Story 10. I worked at a party city in Minnesota. There was one night where I was working the register. It was near the end of the night, tired, still had homework, and I was in a bad mood. However, I was still polite and friendly. Then this lady comes in, grabs a few items, comes to the register. She doesn't say anything, even when I try to make small talk. She seemed like a snooty woman. She just stared at her phone, paid, and left. A few minutes later, she comes in looking for her phone, clearly frustrated. I tell her I haven't seen it, and that I was sure she had walked out with it. She walks out and comes back and says she can't find it. She then proceeds to accuse me of stealing it. I had my phone in my pocket and I showed it to her, told her I had no need for her phone, but I will keep an eye out for it. She demanded I turn out my pockets and she wanted to check behind the register to make sure I hadn't hidden it. So the night manager is there at this point and just tells me to do what she says. It gets to the point where they also go through my locker in the back of the store. Mind you, I only had a few minutes before she comes in accusing me. And then go through my car. How the hell did I manage that when I have to walk right next to her to get to it? After proving I don't have it, she gets angrier and says I must have stolen it because I'm a pathetic loser working retail that can't afford a real phone. Now, normally, I'm a shy, introverted guy that doesn't say much and is polite, but I just tilted into oblivion. Told her she was stuck up, entitled witch that needed a frickin' attitude adjustment, that I had no need for a phone that was better because mine works just fine, and that her phone wouldn't be fit to wipe my bum with. Lame, but I know I was so angry I couldn't really think. I still had the job the next day. I don't understand. Why did his manager even go along with that? That's nuts. I would have rifled around in my pockets for a minute with a focused expression on my face and pulled out my hand, pulling the finger at her. Well, if you like these stories and you were seething with anger because you could relate so hard too, here's more. YouTube thinks you're going to love this. I'll catch you in that video, and thanks for hanging with me on this one.